The sun is up. We've been up for pretty much 12 hours. We've been testing pretty much all night, and we started testing with different accounts as well. But here we go, boys. Let's start this. So I upgraded my Anis to 779. I had another account that had 10 on her as well. But I didn't do as much intensive testing on that. But the main thing about this one was I had to use this account, which is my main account, for the 779. I didn't really have enough skill burst, but it is what it is. But we did a lot of testing, and here's the laydown. Should you pull? Answer's yes. That simple. Do you want dupes though? My answer is, if you have to ask, the answer is no. But if you're a whale or tryhard or competitive, dupes, yes. This is basically at the level of what you would expect in like Dorothy, for example. So yes, she is a good DPS, so you want to get dupes of her. The first 2 stars will unlock the maximum affection, so you get like bonus stats on it. But if you're already at 2, just go get 3 shot. Like, what are we kidding here? Anyways, so let's move on to the skills. Skills is the attack. This one is base of caster attack. It's the same wording as Noir. So basically it's base attack. In other words, like base stats from gears, affections, levels, dupes, and no overload line percentage. So you don't necessarily have to roll for it, but obviously she's a DPS, so you want attack percentage anyways. Recommended skills, I would go with 10-7-9 by minimum. Obviously, skill 1 that is probably the most important thing on her, and level 9 is the main important thing for level 9 is so that when she bursts, she doesn't need brevity to have 1 bullet, which is a pretty important thing. And obviously 10-10-10 all around, similar to how Dorothy is. So if you want like a DPS like support thing, 10-10-10, that's the ideal. But I wouldn't like prioritize it as much as like 10-7-9. I think 10-7-9 is a good stopping point. Now I did some calculation. Well, actually, yeah, fuck this calculation. Who cares about that? It just basically tells that every core you get 2% attack dupe. Anyways, so when she is bursting, how many shots can she do with brevity or without brevity, as long as if she is like shooting alone with her burst, then she can do up to 15 plus 1 shots, whether she has 2 bullets or 1 bullet, or like 5 bullets, where if you're not using Dorothy and you're not bursting with her, you can get to 15 plus 1 shots. It all really depends on how much reload speed you can do, and she can actually do 1 reload speed. She can get enough reload speed by her own without needing brevity. You don't even need Christmas rupee or whoever that is, and you'll just scroll through this. But basically, I think I got around, when skill level 7 and burst level 9, that's when I started noticing that I could do the 15 plus 1. I said 15 plus 1 here because you can get 15 shots during full burst and then plus 1 after full burst when it's like running out. So you could do that with resilience level 7, skill 1 level 7, and burst level 9. So this is actually fine. So if we're actually going to be picky, I think I would go with 7-7-9. So I think that is fine. The one thing I didn't really like on this one is I had to manual it, where making sure that I'm just shooting as I'm bursting. So it's actually kind of it's kind of iffy. Obviously, the more level you have, the less like you have to worry, and if you're using brevity, you don't actually have to worry about it. So you don't have to worry about skill 1 level if you're running at her with brevity. So that's fine. But if you're not running her with brevity, you want to have higher skill level on skill 1 and burst. So now let's go back to the testings that I have done for this. So what I did is I tested on the level 210 Nihilister Tribe Tower here, and I was using different team comps. I was playing around with volume in terms of Burst 1 and Dorothy. They are the primary ones that I did use. I did not consider litter because it's bad for Summer Anis, right? So I did not consider that at all. And those are really the primary two B1s. And for B2, I tested with Quincy, Novel, Biscuit, and Polly together. And I also tested with the Bunny Girl. I did not test with Dala, but I tested with Mast also. But I would say I actually I think I would like with Quincy or Mast more rather than using Novel or Biscuit. And here I'll explain to you guys why. Because I think it is a waste if we end up like using her with Novel. But here. So the stats that I had volume at 477. I have Mast at 747 with this much OL. So you guys can just pause it if you want to check the OL size. Guillotine, I have Force 10.7, and I have Scarlet 10.77. Summer Anis at 7.79 with no OLs, which is pretty really good, right? If I'm bursting with Guillotine, the DPS actually increases with this particular team comp using volume, Mass, Guillotine, Scarlet. I get about 32% damage increase with Guillotine, and for Scarlet I get about 18% damage increase only with her, and Anis, she gets about 32%. So if you're running this particular team comp where volume and then you use Mast with Scarlet and Summer Anis and Guillotine, so if you're using this team comp, you want to burst with Summer Anis and Guillotine, you're just not getting as much damage increase if you're using Scarlet. Now I tested a lot of things, and I have Dorothy also. This one is a pretty chunky Dorothy. I have like 10, 10, 10, 4 OL, and I believe that is 2 elemental damage and 2 attack here. 1 attack, elemental damage, attack. So, I mean, it does total up into just roughly 1 attack at tier 11, but you get where I'm getting at. Novel is 10-4-10, Biscuit is 4-4-4, Polly is 4-4-7, and I did not put in here, but Quincy is 4-4-4. And here are the damage rankings, because it is like just a pretty clear cut TLDR. Now let me see if I can find here we go. Oh, there we go. Okay, so the one that comes out on top is I color coded this. I will share this document if you guys are interested on seeing kind of like the stats that I have here. I tried to rank it all up. Anis, Guillotine's damage here, and the ones that are not showing is Privity. So like if it's not like heavy purple, that would be Privity. And I mean, you can see the team comp on the left side anyway. And then Scarlet, for the most part, it's pretty much Scarlet, except for this one team comp where I tried to not use Scarlet. But Scarlet pretty much existed everywhere here. And then there are bolded letters here. If you guys will notice, the bolded letters it's gonna vary who bursted. So like for example, at this position 9, I have Guillotine and Scarlet that bursted instead of Summer Anis. And so that's why you will see kind of like the damage differences here, and you can definitely see that she didn't get a lot of damage here, right? Like it's white, and there's just all these different setups. And as you can see here, which is pretty interesting, you will start to see that Guillotine actually shines the best with the volume and mass team comp, and Scarlet actually does the best at this one, which is the volume, Quincy, Summer, Anis, and Scarlet. Actually, so this one, the ones that bursted would be these. Yeah. All right. There you go. And how did I test it? Obviously, I fought the Nihilister, but there is also not some consistency here because sometimes I have CP that are under the recommended CP, and so I try to readjust the CP based off like how much CP power with like this using the calculator, comparing it how much like weaker I am. I'm just like roughly multiplying it, and so I have like a, because of the CP adjusted multiplier, I will have you. I will see like kind of like their adjusted DPS, and then the DPS versus yeah, the total DPS right here. And so this is the ranking, and my observation for this one is basically this is the best team comp. You do Dorothy, Novel, Summer Anise, Privity, and Scarlet. However, right, something to keep in mind is because my Dorothy was kind of busted, and again, like I showed you the overloads of Dorothy, she was kind of busting right here, and that's why this is like out DPSing comparatively. Like my Dorothy's here, you'll see that Dorothy was like just way out damaging it, but that's also because she is, well, one, Nihilister is like type advantage, so she has like an advantage for that one, and with the double elemental, and then two, she's just suited against Nihilister, right? And yeah, that's why this one was out damaging it. But I think that if I either one, I made my volume and Mast a little bit have more investment. So for example, if I increase my skill 2 or my Mast skill to like 10, level 10 skill 1 and level 10 burst, and for volume level 10 skill 2 and level 10 burst, I think that they would actually match Dorothy. And the interesting thing about it is this one is right, like they're not type advantage is the thing, and it's not too far off, that's the thing. And I think probably the most interesting thing set up in here was when I started using Quincy. So when I started using Quincy, the damage is actually up there, or at least like the kind of recalculated damage, because of I forgot who versus it. Actually, I know who versus these. So there's that. Yeah, they're there. Because I wouldn't be bursting with Privity anyway. It doesn't make any sense. So I was bursting with Summer Anise and Scarlet, and it is actually interesting to see that, yeah, the damage here is actually really up there. And you will notice also that Quincy does buff Summer Anise and Scarlet a lot, and that's because of her skill 2. If you guys are not very familiar with Quincy's skill 2, she has a very high uptime on her buff on her, where's Quincy? Right, don't go, don't, I'm, oh, right here. Skill 2, effect, ally. And I want to point out the reason why, if you end up using this team though, it does make it seem like it's not good to use with like Guillotine. So this one ends up being down here when you use Guillotine. And that's the reason for this is because Quincy has heals, or essentially she's essentially healing. So Guillotine actually gets healed. Both Scarlet and Guillotine does get healed, and maybe it might be a good idea against like a boss that constantly attacks, like, or something. And then yeah, sure, maybe you could use like Quincy with that. But yeah, Guillotine does take like a huge hit if you're using this one with volume and Quincy and Scarlet, Summer Anise. But so what I found is these. So you can actually end up like replacing Privity in this team comp. The way I see this is like, I think Privity is pretty much replaceable here, because if you want to end up like using Dorothy and Privity into a different team, then you can use volume and then someone else in here. and ideally it would be a support buffer, so you could probably see like Drake or something like that, so she would buff like Summer Annis and Scarlet instead. So you could do that. And yeah, this I'll share the doc in here if you guys are kind of interested, but again, you also have to be wary that the reason why these are happening is because also of my other units investment. But in anyways, this was with no OL when we were testing it. She did Summer Annis didn't have an OL, and then I decided to overload because we were feeling because testing was done already for me, so I could like take the risk of rolling for it, and I might end up getting max ammo. She is still worth rolling even if you don't have Scarlet IMO, because she can build up for her own team, really. Like, she is not a bad DPS basically on her own. And if you have Guillotine, you can set it up with Guillotine, right? So you can do Summer Annis, Guillotine, and then you just use Scarlet. Did I have a Scarlet? Yeah, I did have right here. So you can replace this instead of using Summer Annis, Guillotine, Scarlet. You could use Summer Annis, Guillotine instead, and then use that. And again, the damage difference is not that far off. Guillotine, again, the most interesting thing part is like she is enabled a lot by a crit team, which is pretty insane. So with volume Mast, it does enable her a lot. So with Quincy, obviously she doesn't really fit well with Quincy, so that's something to consider. But yeah, chat, that is kind of like the TLDR, and I think overall we answered like a lot of things that probably you guys are questioning. It is daytime now. Huh. Anyways, again, the reason why Dorothy is up here is because she is super invested, and I think that if I remove the Dorothy being super invested, this volume team would actually come up a little bit more on top right there. 12-hour stream, yeah. Hey, listen, that's I like. If you guys are curious, just go back to the VOD if you want to see me like just do all this tests and stuff. I will see more if I end up finding team comps. Oh, I forgot. Yeah, I totally forgot to talk about this one, which is the Biscuit Annis Polly Scarlet team comp with Dorothy. And actually, it actually, the damage of it is actually not that bad. Looking at this, so and one of the main thing is I think to consider is if you have like a good Dorothy, you could use that. The downside is, I mean, yeah, maybe you're using Brevity for your litter. Yeah, you could actually, yeah, you could be using Dorothy or no, like you could be using litter on another team with Brevity and like Alice, and you could do the 109% reload speed Alice team comp with Admi and Privity, right? So you could be using Privity somewhere else, right? And the reason why Biscuit is good is because of her buffs. So if you guys that are not aware, Biscuit has like a really good buff. The downside is she has 40 seconds, but it does buff her attack. The supporter allies, it does buff all the supporter allies attack by, you know, this much amount. So it's actually not that bad. And this is something to consider if, for example, you end up needing a healer, right? But another thing is like if you do need a healer, you could use Quincy. So that's another thing. So you could do that, or you could use like, yeah, you could use Biscuit and Polly. So when you're using Biscuit, you need another burst 2 Polly is another good choice just because of like she has a high multiplier and she's also 40 seconds. But if you don't, then you can always like just use another one. And in fact, you could even actually try to use Quincy with her, right? Like that's another thing. So it ends up Biscuit ends up being kind of like a replacement for like Privity or something. Did I test Biscuit Polly with Guillotine? It did, and it's um wait, the Biscuit, did I test with Biscuit? Well, here's the thing, right? Let me just give you a TLDR. Guillotine, if she can keep up her health down below, she will deal more damage than Scarlet. How do we know that? Well, we already seen it, right? Like with this, it's my Guillotine and Scarlet are actually roughly the same, pretty much like they're basically the same stats essentially. So, and my Guillotine was out damaging my Scarlet. If there's any difference, it would be the crit rate and crit damage. And you know what? Maybe that might be putting my Guillotine above the edge of Scarlet. Who knows? But still, it's like, I'm just saying. Yeah, let's just say Guillotine. You want to burst with Guillotine. Guillotine's burst is really good. If you can keep up her low health and burst, then Guillotine is stronger than Scarlet. But can you keep it up? No, that's another question. And actually, if you use Biscuit, you might not be able to keep it up because Biscuit has at the end of full burst affects all attacker allies. It gives crit rate and then constant recovery. So she heals. So you probably don't want Biscuit. I think Biscuit is a good sub if you don't have Quincy or like, and you wanna do a healer, right? That's another sub. There are other units, but I think they just kind of fall in between all of these. And Diesel, we've already tested it previously. Diesel does lower damage comparatively to Mast on a crit comp, so yeah, just do that. But yeah, yeah, another thing to note is the bunny girls. Interestingly enough, they are still at the top of the DPS, but I do think that there might be something to play because I have a pretty good Noir. Although she does mostly have elemental damage, she does have some ammo, so that's another thing to consider. Actually, let me double check. Elemental, so that doesn't help. Attack, actually she only has attack, that's it. Actually, no, nothing else would help against Nihilist or boss. So yeah, actually, yeah, here we go. Anyways, I was bursting, I think, with Scarlet and Summer Anise, but obviously because I was using Summer Anise, she wasn't dealing as much damage, right? That's one downside on this because like you're getting bullets, but nonetheless, well, bunnies are still strong. Just because of their inherent like nature of like multipliers, and this one, right? So the bunnies, because I have 7 7 10 on my blank, and then my Nor, I have 10 10 7, so that actually kind of ruins my Summer Anise setup. But I think this is just basically bunny girls being bunny girls, really, at the end of the day. So I personally, I wouldn't recommend it because it doesn't, if you can see it here how much this team comps enable particular unit, right? So the best one is, pretty interestingly enough, it's Volume, Quincy, Privity, which makes sense because they're all buffers, right? They buff Summer Anise, so it does make sense that Summer Anise is enabled that much. Same with Scarlet, they have pretty much like good buffers. But yeah, I rambled a lot, but I think that is enough testing for now. I'll share this docs as usual. Good luck, have fun, gamers. May your RNG, if you guys want to keep pulling more, or you're trying to get your first summer anise. Good luck, gamers. GG's. Thank you all for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next time.